Finally, we got some real Steeler football news to talk about. The Pittsburgh Steelers had practice for the first time in training camp yesterday in St. Vincent College in Latrobe. Today, we're going to be talking about our takeaways of that practice. We got some footage to go along with it as well. Before we do so, please hit that like and subscribe button, ring that notification bell if you're not already have done so. That way you're notified of all of our content and our weekly lives. With that being said, I'm Daniel J. This is State of the Steelers. Let's get into this. So first and foremost, I want to get started by talking about some breaking news outside of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Some key injuries to some key players on some teams that a lot of people are expecting to make some noise this year. First one comes out of Miami for the Miami Dolphins. Cornerback Jalen Ramsey went down with a knee injury, had to be carted off. Some good news, bad news here. Bad news first is it's requiring surgery. He will miss the start of the season. Good news is all indications indicate that the ACL is intact, and that is just not a season-ending injury. So good news there on that aspect. Unfortunately, he's just going to have to miss the remaining portion of developmental football and the beginning of the season for him. We wish you a speedy recovery as well, and hopefully a quick return. Another big injury that went down for the Cincinnati Bengals, quarterback Joe Burrow went down with a non-contact lower leg injury. There's been a lot of speculation out there, whether it's a calf, a knee, an Achilles. At the time of this recording, nothing has been confirmed or stated as far as the severity of the injury as well. That's some big news for a team that has some high expectations this year for the first couple of times in a while. Last couple of years, they've had some high expectations. This year, it's Super Bowl or bust for them in their own eyes, so to speak. Maybe not from everybody else, but for them, it's Super Bowl or bust. And, well, this is a huge blow to them. Regardless of anything, regardless of the dislike of the team, we never wish injury upon anybody. So we do hope that Joe has a speedy recovery as well, and it's not that severe. But I do anticipate this probably might be one of the last few times we see him, if it ends up not being a serious injury until, leading up to week 1 of the regular season. With all that out of the way, let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the Steelers practiced for approximately 90 minutes in St. Vincent College yesterday. That workout included 3 team periods, 36 plays, and 1 7-on-7 period. Quarterbacks, obviously starting, was Kenny Pickett, followed by Mitch Trubisky and Mason Rudolph, who all 3 each took 12 snaps apiece. A lot of big questions that were out there was who's the left tackle, who's starting. And it is Dan Moore who has been taking first-team reps with the starting offensive line at the left tackle position. It appears that only Kevin Dodson at this point is the only player to have lost his starting role. The starting offensive line from left to right go as Dan Moore, Isaac Seumalo, Mason Cole, James Daniels, and then Cheeks Corfor at right tackle to end it out. Broderick Jones was playing at left tackle on the second team alongside Kevin Dodson on the left side. On the right side was Nate Herbig at guard and Raven Clark at right tackle. Center was Kendrick Green, so he might be cutting a role out for himself on this team after all as a backup center. With all that being said, apparently from all indications from a lot of reporters that were and beat reporters that were on site that were there watching this team play today, the offense looked pretty good. Pickett looked good. Arm looks great. Many reports of an updated offense, and that's something that I talked about earlier, that this team was going to need to not just, do enough to win, but they were going to have to put up some splash and put up some points, especially, when you think that Matt Canada is going to be on the hot seat. Doing just enough to, maybe 20 points a game is not going to be enough, in my opinion. The 18 that they got last season is definitely nowhere near enough. And so I anticipate this offense to be more, risk-taking, allowing some more splash. And apparently it seems like there's going to be an emphasis on pushing the ball down the field. In the first play of team, the Pittsburgh Steelers went in shotgun. The receivers with Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, and Allen Robinson. Pickett did a great job surveying the field and targeted Pickens on a deep route down the sidelines. And so Pickens, he ran past cornerback Patrick Peterson, but Peterson did one of those wily vet moves and tugged on Pickens' jersey to slow him down. just enough to get back into position and bat the ball away before Pickens could reel it in. Now, based on some reports that are out there, the ball may have been slightly underthrown, but had there been officials present, it sounds like Pat P would have probably been called for pass interference on that play. But I like the aggression. I like going out there on the first play of team and attacking down the field. We got a clip of, it's not that play per se, but a clip of the Pittsburgh Steelers or Kenny Pickett going down the field, and we can kind of see what he was able to do in this situation. In this position here, in this play, it appears that this cornerback has safety help, and he drops, Kenny Pickett, that is, just drops it right in between the cornerback and the safety, over the outstretched fingertips of the cornerback as he goes up into the bucket there. In fact, I don't really think that this player needs to jump up. I think if he just stays running underneath of it, that this is going to be right on the money. I can't tell who that is from this angle. It appears, and I think that's Anthony McFarland. I think this is the play that he burns Cole Holcomb, new middle linebacker in 7-on-7. I think this is the play that he burns him down the field. So that was reported, and I was in fact going to be talking about that a little bit later. But I believe this is that play. And so, yeah, that is Cole Holcomb, number 55. Anthony McFarland out of the backfield down the. I remember when Ben tried that play down the field. It didn't work out so great in that situation. But I'm glad that they're still trying to do some things and move down the field. Great play, great precision positioning of the ball down the field. I don't think that Anthony McFarland needs to jump up in that situation. I think that if he continues to run through, he's going to catch that ball with a little bit easier and at ease. But I like the positioning of the ball. Great placement. So on another play that would be considered one of the best plays on the offense was a play action pass play, which I believe I have that one on the pulled up here. So while that's being brought up. So one of the things that you could that you'll see out of this play, first and foremost, is that it was out of play action pass. Play action pass was something that we hadn't seen the Pittsburgh Steelers do a lot last year. And so, in my opinion, to see something like this is important, especially this part of developmental football, because I think that kind of indicates that there could be an emphasis on the play action pass going into this season. When you look at how the Pittsburgh Steelers were able to run the ball last year towards down the stretch in the second half of the year, that sort of became their identity. Play action pass, I think, could have worked significantly, would have worked very well for this team, given how well they were running the ball. And it was just something that the Steelers didn't utilize. Maybe perhaps they just didn't get to that part of the playbook. By all indications, and listening to other, sports beat writers and other, professional journalists who covered the Pittsburgh Steelers, for instance, one being, DK Sports, listening to him earlier, and he mentioning that, DK mentioning on the Ramon Foster show that there was imagination to the play calls. The plays weren't obvious, and that the plays also weren't, predictable. And so, he had no idea what play was coming next, which direction they were going to go, whether it was going to be a run or a pass. And that was something that we really wanted to see out of this team. And I, for one, think that we're starting to see that right off the bat. Word coming out of training camp from, sports beat writers is that this offense is going to look pretty good and a lot different than what it was. But as you can see, Kenny Pickett does a play action pass, rolls out a little bit to the right, throws the ball over to a corner route to Deontay Johnson, who climbs up and gets it and stays in bounds. And so great pass, great play, great catch all around the board. I think Deontay Johnson's going to be a guy that ends up being, a breakout player this year, in my opinion. I think he has the ability to do so, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. I think last year him not having the touchdowns and also being another year being criticized for running backwards and drops, and rightfully so. He had some drops in some pretty important, parts of games, and he came backwards, which lost, first downs and things like that. And so, rightfully so, he got some criticism behind it. He didn't score a touchdown the entire year. I think he's coming back this year with a huge chip on his shoulder and something to prove. And I think we're going to see the best of Deontay Johnson coming out here in the next, this next couple, this season coming up. And so another thing that I did want to touch on was apparently there was a new formation that flashed itself today. It was the pistol formation. The Steelers went into pistol about 5 times, apparently, multiple plays working off of that. And at one point, they ran a play action counter with a screen to the backside. But apparently, there was the development or the possibility of a screen to the front side, running back as well. So, it's one of those plays where they're going to show 2 different things. And perhaps, how last season, I think there was plays against the Steelers that were highlighted by the Philadelphia Eagles, where they did one play in the first half, and then in the second half, utilized the same play, look, and attack deep down the field and got a touchdown. And I think that might be something similar here, where they're going to show or do one go one way and then kind of hit the defense with the other way, showing the same look, or have those different options based on what the defense is showing them. But either way, I like the imagination. I like the creativity in it. And I'm looking forward to seeing it, pop up on screen. And so, like I mentioned before, and this is something that I wrote down, on 7-on-7 period Pickett, he hit one of the whole shots in cover 2, which was exactly what we had seen, to Anthony McFarland over the head of Cole Holcomb. So that could be a problem. Last season, the last couple of years, the middle linebacker position has been a huge concern for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They did a complete overhaul this year, including replacing, the former inside linebackers coach, Jerry O. And so they did a complete overhaul. Cole Holcomb came in. We heard some rumblings earlier this season. The Steelers brought in a Quan Alexander, and, if they're shopping, there's a reason, right? Is there a concern? Do they still feel that they haven't filled that, position as far as the coverage ability of the middle linebacker? Anthony McFarland isn't going to, he's not one of the top running backs that can catch out there in the league. He's a guy that didn't even make the 53 last year. And so if he's out there burning him, which I understand he has some wheels on him, he's got some legs, he's a speedy guy, but Cole Holcomb is a guy that's got to have to be able to cover him. Now, one other thing I wanted to touch on was Elijah Riley. If you guys watched the live show, which I'll pull it up on the end of this, it'll be on the end screen. I talked about Elijah Riley being a guy that I thought maybe perhaps makes the team. He ended up having the first interception of camp against Mason Rudolph, where he basically stepped in front of the receiver to intercept him. He was also put on first-team punt return and coverage. So I think it's important that if you're going to try to make this team, that far down on the depth chart at corner, at slot, or safety, that you have, you're able to put something together or put something forward on special teams. It's a huge aspect of this game. And to see him playing in special teams leads me to believe even more that he's going to be a guy that's probably going to make this 53. And finally, the last thing I want to talk about today, referencing yesterday's training camp, was that it was a really good day for Nick Herbig. He registered 2 sacks, both against LaRaven Clark. So it wasn't against the first team, obviously. He's not a starter either. But he was able to go up against LaRaven Clark, who has 36-inch arms. And when you talk about, Nick Herbig, he's a guy that has been criticized about his size and his length. And so to see him go up against a longer, tackle and still be able to be successful, get around, do a rip and dip type move twice on 2 separate occasions and be able to sack the quarterback, showcasing his natural leverage and bend. Is It was good. It was good to see that out there. It was good to hear that as well. That he had a big day. Like I said before, he's a guy that a lot of people have said that he has a great motor. Has some concerns when it comes to the height and length department, but apparently he's the same height and weight as Micah Parsons, and so that hasn't stopped him any. So maybe perhaps he can be another guy that can get in that rotation. I honestly think that Nick Herbig was a guy that the Pittsburgh Steelers were targeting somewhere in the third round, but with Darnell Washington falling so far, couldn't pass it up and ended up still being there, late in the fourth, which, like I said, this was an amazing draft. That's all I got for you guys today. Please hit that like and subscribe button, ring that notification bell. We'll be doing this again tomorrow. That being said,